Who's the best Willy Wonka? Is it Gene Wilder, Johnny Depp, or Timothee Chalamet? Let's get into this. Right, let's start at the beginning. Roald Dahl wrote Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, 1964. It began the Willy Wonka story for audiences around the world. Can Timothee Chalamet disrupt Gene Wilder as the best Wonka ever? Well, let's start with Timothee Chalamet, right? Like Hot Boy of the Month 10 years ago, or just under with Call Me By Your Name. He's now like one of the biggest actors in the world. Can he take on Wonka? Well, he does, and he can. He does a really good job with it. Does he have the darkness that we want from Willy Wonka? Not for me. Willy Wonka had some anger issues, right? There was a lot of complexity to his character. Timothee Chalamet plays quite a squeaky clean, happy-go-lucky Willy Wonka. He's obviously pretty handsome, and he's got the moves down to a T. I believe that he is Willy Wonka. It's kind of spooky to see the moves that we remember from Gene Wilder reenacted by Timothee Chalamet. He does a great job. Everyone's going to love him. It's a family-friendly film. But for me, there's a bit of darkness in Wonka that I didn't find in Chalamet's performance. So let's start with the disruptor, right? Can Timothee Chalamet be any better than Gene Wilder? Well, first up, family's going to love him. He looks great. Mums are going to love him. Teens are going to love him. I really enjoyed him. I thought it was a great performance. For me, it isn't dark enough. Wonka is dark. There's dark energy. He gets angry. He's a broken guy, right? Like there's lots going on in his past. You're like, ooh, I don't know if I want to look under the covers. But with Chalamet, you don't get to look under the covers. It's a great surface performance. It's really fun. There's some good laughs in there. It's really family friendly. For me, it wasn't quite dark enough. More about Wonka, more about the new film, more about Wonka, the new origin story that's come out now. There's some absolutely cracking supporting casts. I mean, my goodness, there's a guy called Tom Davies. He's an actor, he's done some other work. I can't tell you I've seen anything else that he's been in, but he's got this very deep voice. There's so much love from the supporting cast. Hugh Grant as the Oompa Loompa, and he really plays up to lofty, but he really isn't afraid to make a massive joke out of himself. And he's got some cracking lines. If anything, this Wonka's got some brilliant comedy. That's actually one of the best things about this film. Final point on this film, it's incredibly imaginative. This new film has some really interesting elements of the storyline to it. You sort of really feel like you're back in Dahl's world. And that's no mean feat for a new writer, because Roald Dahl was just, singular in his ability to make these incredible imaginary fairy tale lands. And this being an origin story, we get a whole new world of Willy Wonka, and there's some really, really, really cool parts that we can escape off into. We need to look at the competition. So, right, we've got Johnny Depp. Let's forget Johnny Depp. Then we've got Gene Wilder, right? I mean, the original on-screen Willy Wonka. He was Willy Wonka. This was an age, let's remember, this was before CGI. This was before clever computer visual effects. This was just a man in a top hat and some really clever acting, some creepy little eyes, some funny little side looks, some interesting songs. I'm sorry, but for me, Gene Wilder will always be Willy Wonka. That role, let's remember, filmed back in the 70s, it was a period of time that was way closer to when Roald Dahl himself was writing the book, only 10 years later. Dahl himself was still alive. The set's just so beautiful and handmade. I mean, that chocolate factory when Augustus Gloop falls in the chocolate and, his mum tells him to save some room for later. I mean, we all remember Veruca Salt and her hissy fits. That original film, with its handmade feel, with its gorgeous little props, will always, always win. So, sorry, Timothee Chalamet. It's always Gene Wilder for me. For me, the new Wonka is a brilliant origin story. It's really, really imaginative. It's got some great supporting roles. It's got some really big laughs. But for me, Gene Wilder, the darkness, the grittiness, and the just pure imagination and the novelty of that film will always, always be the best version of Willy Wonka of this story. What do you think? Johnny Depp, Timothee Chalamet, or the original Gene Wilder? Let us know in the comments below.